Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we are answering a question that I get asked all the time, which is, how did I get here? Like, how did I reach this point in my spirituality? Was I always pagan? What religion did I grow up as? Where did I study? What have I studied? Who did I study with? Just all these questions about my religious history and my religious background, my spiritual background. I get asked those all the time, and it's really hard to answer in like a typed out message. And it's also really hard to answer quickly. So I figured I'll just make a whole video about this, and then you guys will know more about me, we'll be more acquainted with each other, and also I can answer this question once and for all. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, just kind of my religious and spiritual background. So, I grew up Methodist. I did not grow up pagan, I did not grow up Wiccan, I did not grow up as a witch. I don't know anyone in my family that identifies as a witch or identifies as pagan. I come from a loosely Christian family. We were not religious by any means. Like I said, I grew up Methodist, and like if somebody asked my parents, they would say we're Methodist. But I guess we went to church every Sunday until I was about, I really can't remember. I think I was like 7 or 8, maybe even younger than that when we stopped going to church. But for a while when I was young, we went to church every single Sunday. And I hated it. It was, it's a Methodist church, so if you know anything about the different churches within Christianity, you'll know that Methodists are kind of the chillest ones of the Christians. Methodists are usually, chill about gayness, more liberal, but they are still Christian. So, I never really connected with it. I never really related to it. I never felt like it was something that resonated with me. I remember like sitting in Sunday school and being like, this is some bullshit. And I don't mean to talk badly about other people's religions. The beauty of religion is that there are so many, and the whole point is that you have to choose and decide what you believe. So whatever you believe is what you believe, and it's not my place to tell you that you're wrong or that you're doing something bad or whatever. So it's not I'm not going to sit here and tell you that your religion is awful or bad or whatever. It's just not for me. So as a kid, I didn't feel connected to Christianity or the Methodist Church at all. And I would beg my parents every single Sunday to not make me go to church. And I was the kind of kid that didn't want to sit there for an hour and listen to a guy talk. I think most kids don't want to do that. That's like a lot to ask of a kid, to just sit there and do nothing, say nothing, just listen to this man talk for like 45 minutes. I really hated that aspect of it. It felt very like one-sided, like there was no space for me in the religion. It was kind of just like the church, God, the priest, and then like I had to be there. I just never connected to it. I didn't like it. And I remember I got to the age where they were starting to try to, in Sunday school, like encourage you to read the Bible. And that's when I stopped going to church, because I just did not want to read the Bible. Again, I just don't connect to Christianity even a little. Nothing about it interests me. So I was raised Methodist, but my parents were not particularly religious. My parents believed in the Christian God. And of course I grew up celebrating Christmas, Easter, all those things, but we were not a religious family. We really didn't do any praying. We didn't say grace before we ate a meal. We didn't I don't really remember my parents ever teaching me how to pray before bed. That never happened. So we weren't a religious family. We did for a while when I was young go to church every week, but that fizzled out pretty quickly when I was a kid, partially because I really didn't want to go, and I broke my parents down until they admitted they didn't want to go, and then we stopped going. So from that point on, I would say we were always a very secular family, but once we stopped going to church every Sunday, we became purely secular. religion didn't really have a place in our lives. We were like a lot of Americans, I feel, especially of recent generations, where we don't really have a religion. Like, everybody talks about the Christian God and just assumes that God is, God. It's just God. It's the Christian God. And we celebrated, like I said, Christmas, Easter, all the Christian holidays, but we didn't actually practice any Christianity. And growing up, the only religions I really knew of were the religions I saw around me. And I did grow up in a very diverse, smaller town, kind of a medium-sized town, in upstate New York. So it was very diverse. We had a lot of Muslim people, Muslim churches. I knew of all the God-based religions. I knew of Christianity, Judaism, Islam. I knew about all of those things, Catholicism. I knew about all those religions. And I knew a bit about Buddhism and Hinduism, but I didn't really know anything about them, and what I did know about them felt very separate from me. I've seen people talk about how with religion, you can only be a part of a religion that you relate to. So I think with something like Buddhist or Hindu religions, they're very specific to a certain area of the world. Not to say that no one else is Buddhist or Hindu or any of those things, but I didn't relate to Buddhism. I felt like it was just something that I couldn't even wrap my mind around. So all the religions I knew of growing up didn't really resonate with me. I felt like Buddhism was the one that I most related to, but it wasn't enough of a feeling of a connection to make me want to pursue Buddhism. I just thought it was interesting, more so than all the God-based religions I knew of and had seen firsthand. So growing up, I've kind of felt like, I guess I'm just never gonna have a religion. I felt like, I guess I'm just kind of secular. Because I didn't relate to any religions, I felt like there's no religion for me, I guess. I guess religion just isn't for me. And I felt that way until I was 16. When I was 16 is when I discovered Wicca. Hi, Veenie. Miss Venus is staring at me. I love you. So at 16 is when I discovered Wicca, and paganism and witchcraft. I kind of discovered all three, like bing, bang, boom, finding one led to finding another, which led to finding another, and then researched the three all together and separately. So I found Wicca, witchcraft, paganism when I was 16. And at first, I actually remember, and this is like a laugh riot, but I actually remember that the way I found Wicca was because I was watching an episode of Buffy, as you do, and I like grew up watching Buffy because, I was born in the 90s, so Buffy was like on my whole childhood, and my mom loved Buffy, so my sister and I loved Buffy, and we were watching it all the time. And I remember as a 16-year-old, a rerun of Buffy was on, and I think it was the episode where they're just starting college, and Willow goes to that Wicca group, and then it turns out that it's just like a bunch of wannabe Wiccans who just want to like have a bake sale and blah, blah, blah. And they don't actually do any like Wicca witchcraft. So I remember I was watching that episode, and I remember just having this moment where I was like, is Wicca an actual thing? Like, is this thing that Willow practices in Buffy based on a real thing? So then I Googled it. And it is. It's a real thing. It was a real thing. So I immediately was like, oh, snap. And I fell down this whole rabbit hole where I was like, oh my God, Wicca's real and it's amazing. And this is what I've been waiting for. And when I looked up Wicca because of Willow Rosenberg, one of the first things I found was a YouTube video by Tiptoe Chick that was all about Wicca. If you don't know Tiptoe Chick, she was a YouTuber. She was all about witchcraft and Wicca, and sadly she has passed away. She was in a car accident not too long ago, and sadly is no longer with us, which is really just awful. I would have loved to meet her and tell her what an impact she had on my life and setting me on the right path in terms of Wicca and paganism. Her video all about Wicca, and I'll link it down below, was the thing that made me decide I am Wiccan. I am becoming Wiccan. I'm going to study Wicca and start practicing Wicca, and I'm going to be Wiccan for the rest of my life. Just immediately resonated with me on a very deep level. I always had a problem with monotheistic God-based religions where I felt like, why is God a man? Why does God look nothing like me? Why can't God relate to my experience of being a woman? Why is God one thing? I always felt like I can literally remember as a kid being like, God is all around us. Like, God is all around us. So when I was going to church and being told God this, God that, I was like, what? What are you talking about? Like, I never viewed deity or divinity as being a man in the sky with all-knowing powers, with the ability to decide, you do this and this happens to you and you die now and you live and you get to die also. And like, I never agreed with that. I never felt like that was correct for me. I couldn't believe it. Felt unbelievable. So when I found Wicca, it felt like I was finally finding something that made sense to me. There's a god and a goddess. They are two halves to a whole. They can't exist without each other. They're intertwined. It's not so cut and dry. It's not like man, woman. It's like man, woman. So that really resonated with me, that duality of deity and of divinity. And also the way Wiccans honor the earth and see divinity in all things. We are all God. We all come from divinity. We are all a little slice of divinity. We can see and feel divinity all around us in nature. I loved that about Wicca. I loved the honor and worship of the sun and the moon. I feel like those two things keep us alive. They keep us going. They're the reason we're here. So I loved that we were honoring those things within Wicca. And I loved that within Wicca there was this space to make it your own. There aren't these strict rules. With Wicca, all there is really is the Wiccan Rede. Harm none, do what you will. So I loved the Wiccan Rede as well. I loved that basically you were living by, I want to do my best to not harm anyone, including myself. I really loved that concept. And I loved the freedom within it. I loved that you can make Wicca your own. Everyone's Wicca practice obviously has big overreaching similarities, but everybody's Wicca practice is unique to them. Within Wicca, you can decide what label you want. You know, there are so many different kinds of Wiccans, and you can even just be an eclectic Wiccan, which is what I identify as. So I loved this concept of paganism and worshiping multiple deities, and that God isn't just God. There are gods, and there are goddesses, and there are spirit guides, and there are angels, and there are beings of the shadow and the darkness, and beings of the light, and there are just all these energy beings, not just one God who's in charge of everything. So all those things really pulled me into Wicca, and I've always been a big nature animal lover, so I loved that I would be honoring the seasons and moving with the seasons and going through the seasons as if I were a being of the earth, which I am. So I immediately felt drawn to Wicca and immediately started studying. And after I found that video by Tiptoe Chick and started doing other research on Wicca online, I went to a used bookstore and found the spirituality section, and they actually had a whole section on Wicca, witchcraft, and paganism. And I spent so long in that section, and I found the book that was the first book on Wicca I ever purchased. It was a old copy of Wicca and Living Wicca, both by Scott Cunningham. And it also was Scott Cunningham's book of Incense, Oils, and Brews. All three of those books in one book. And that was the first Wicca book I ever bought. And I immediately went home and started reading it. I've read that book now, I think, like 4 or 5 times. Honestly, I think if there were going to be like a Wiccan Bible, it would be Wicca and Living Wicca by Scott Cunningham, in my opinion. That is the book that taught me about altars, taught me about worshiping God and worshiping Goddess. Taught me about working with the moon and the sun. Taught me about what magic is, because, you know, when you grow up in a Christian society, you think magic is one thing, but that's not what magic is at all. So learning what magic was crazy to me, and I immediately felt really drawn to it. And while I was studying Wicca at 16 and 17, I kept it to myself. I didn't tell anyone that I was studying it or that I was pretty much Wiccan. I didn't tell anyone that I was planning on adopting the label Wiccan and being a Wiccan. I never told anyone that. I felt really uncomfortable with telling people that. I felt like there was a lot of misinformation and stereotypes with Wicca and witchcraft, and I felt too new to Wicca to stand up to that and deal with that. So I just kept it to myself for those first couple years. And like I said, I didn't know anyone that wasn't Christian. So I felt really uncomfortable being like, hey, I'm not Christian, I'm a witch. Hey, I'm Wiccan. That made me kind of uncomfortable. Just kind of come out and say that to all those people. That made me feel nervous. And also, it was so new to me that I was still figuring it out. You know, I didn't have all the answers yet to people's questions when you say I'm Wiccan. So I didn't feel equipped to have those conversations yet. So I just kept it to myself while I studied within myself. I think actually the first couple people I told that I was Wiccan were some friends in high school, some close friends. And I really value them for the way they reacted. They were super into it, and they actually wanted to know more about it and wanted me to do tarot readings for them and wanted me to explain what Wicca is to them and what I believe and what I practice and what is involved in being a Wiccan. So those are the first people I ever told. I think when I was 17, my senior year of high school, I told a couple close friends in high school. But other than that, I didn't tell anyone about my Wicca studies. And then when I was 18, I moved out of my parents' house, moved across the country, and that is when I started practicing Wicca and identifying as Wiccan. And I've never gone back. So I studied for 2 years without any practice, and then started practice when I was 18, and I've been a practicing Wiccan ever since. So now I identify as an eclectic Wiccan. I identify as a witch. I know lots of Wiccans are a certain kind of Wiccan. I never really felt comfortable just being one kind of Wiccan. My practice is very eclectic, so I identify as an eclectic Wiccan. And just to real quick talk a little bit about my ancestry and my genetics. My family comes from a lot of places. Like a lot of Americans, my DNA is like a melting pot. But one of the biggest chunks of my DNA comes from, very obviously, Germany, Ireland, the Netherlands. So I very strongly descend from Celtic blood. I have Celtic ancestors, so I come from Druids, and if you don't know much about Celts or Druids, they didn't just come from Ireland. There was a lot of that in the Germany area as well. A lot of my family comes from these pagan, more witchy, magical groups. So I think that's where my pull toward this religion really comes from, is from that ancestry. And once I started practicing Wicca and identifying as Wiccan, that is when my practice really evolved, because I was practicing. So not only was I continuing to study, as you always do with Wicca, you're never done studying, I was also practicing. So that helped me really learn more about myself and learn what my practice was going to be. And that's when I started working with ancient Egyptian and Greek deities. And I work with ancient Egyptian and Greek deities because, and maybe I can make a video about this in the future and talk more about it, but ancient Greece and ancient Egypt have a lot of connections historically. Most people know somewhat the history of Greece and Egypt, with Cleopatra and Alexander the Great and all that stuff. Ancient Egypt and ancient Greece are very strongly linked in that way. You'll see Greco-Roman temples to ancient Egyptian deities. A lot of ancient Egyptian deities have Greek names, or Greek deities have Egyptian names. So those are the pantheons I work with. And my connection to that comes through Greece. I actually have parts of my family that are Greek Orthodox in religion, and I was actually supposed to be raised Greek Orthodox, but because of some family feuds with religious differences, I was raised Methodist instead. That's where my connection to Greek pantheon and by extension ancient Egyptian pantheon comes from. I have a very strong connection through past lives to ancient Egypt and ancient Greece. That's where my pull toward that comes from. The first deities I ever worked with were ancient Egyptian. The first deity I ever started working with was Bastet. And then I think from there I started working with... who was next? Sekhmet. It was Bastet and then Sekhmet. And then from there I started working with Hecate and Lilith. And then after that, I started working with Anubis. And then after that, I started working with Mary Magdalene, which is the only, Christian energy being that I work with. If you're interested in videos on Mary Magdalene, comment that down below. And then I started working with, most recently, it's kind of a Zeus-Horus hybrid that I work with. I work with both of them. And they kind of give each other messages to give me and give me messages for each other and through each other. So it's kind of like a, they're so strongly connected, and they have similar attributes, not the same, but similar. And then the most recent deity that I started working with was Aphrodite just about 6 months ago, I think. So those are all the deities that I work with as of now, and what my practice looks like right now as an eclectic Wiccan. There are a lot of other aspects to my practice, though, beyond deity work, and we'll get into that right now as I explain everything I've studied. When I believe I was 20 years old, I saw on Instagram, actually, advertised that near me, there was going to be a 3-day Reiki certification program. It was level 1 and level 2 of Reiki. So I had heard of Reiki. And if you don't know much about Reiki, I do have some videos about Reiki. There are more coming. But if you want to know more about Reiki, comment that down below so I know that you guys are interested in that. But Reiki is a energy healing practice. Reiki is a type of energy, so it's kind of like pure love energy, pure healing energy. So you can go to a Reiki practitioner for an energy healing. So I saw that this level 1, level 2 attunement certification course was happening over the weekend, and I felt really drawn to it. So I signed up. And the woman who performed that weekend-long Reiki certification and attunement program on me, her name is Madre Jaguar, and she is a Reiki master, and I will link her Instagram down below, so if you want to find more information about her and maybe learn from her, you can do that. But she performed my level 1 and level 2 Reiki attunements and taught me all about Reiki. The Reiki symbols, the Reiki hand positions, how to perform a Reiki healing, all those things. The history of Usui Reiki, which is the kind of Reiki I practice. So that happened when I was 20. I became a level 1 and level 2 Reiki practitioner. And then a couple years later, when I believe I was 22, I was looking through one of my local spiritual centers' website, and they were holding a class all about the Akashic Records. And it was a certification program to read the Akashic Records. And I immediately was interested, and I signed up. So that sent me on a journey that was, I think, a year, maybe even a year and a half long, of taking Akashic Records classes. To explain more about that, I took class from Helen von der Heide. Again, I will link her information down below if you want to learn more about her and maybe take class from her or connect with her. She taught me all about the Akashic Records, and she was a certified teacher through Linda Howe's Akashic Records certification program. So I was taking Linda Howe's certification program through Helen von der Heide because she was one of her certified teachers. So This was a series of classes. It was 5 classes, each one a weekend long. So each class was 3 days, and they were not, bing, bang, boom. They were over a year and a half. So I took all 5 of those classes, became certified in all 5 levels of the Akashic Records that Linda Howe offers. That year and a half of Akashic Records classes was some of the most transformative work I've ever done. If you don't work in the Akashic Records, I really recommend getting into it. Learn how to access the records and start accessing the records for yourself. Learn about your past lives. Learn about your current life and why you're having this current life on a soul level. It just really opens your mind to yourself, to all of yourself from past lives, just your soul level truth. You get to know yourself on a soul level. So I spent a year and a half taking all of those certification programs, and now I am certified from 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in Linda Howe's Akashic Records program. So I am a certified Akashic Records practitioner. And I will also link Linda Howe's website down below. Helen is no longer teaching with Linda Howe. She's doing things that she's created herself, which are really great. So you can check those out on Helen's website. But on Linda Howe's website is where you can learn more about the classes I took, all about the Akashic Records, and they're happening all over the country. Linda Howe has so many teachers that work for her that teach these materials and teach these classes and these certification programs. So if you look at Linda Howe's website, you might be able to find a class near you to get you started on these courses. And I really recommend them. I so enjoyed them. I took 4 of the classes from my teacher, Helen Vonderheide, and then I took the 5th class on the Akashic Records from Linda Howe herself. So if you're interested in that, I'll link those down below. But that was a very transformative and amazing year and a half for me. Working in the Akashic Records is just really powerful. So the Akashic Records do come into my practice quite a lot. I have a very strong connection to seeing past lives of myself and of others. So when I'm performing healings on people and things like that, I'll be very easily able to see past lives they've had or a sacred wound that's still with them in this life, and that's why they're having chronic pain, or that's why they're having whatever issue. So I do work a lot with past lives. And through that, I made some friends, and they introduced me to a shaman in my area that teaches classes. And this shaman, he teaches classes all about shamanism, and he will basically train you in shamanism so you can be a shaman and do shamanic work. So I am a shaman. I studied with him for about, I think, a year and a half. I think they were both a year and a half, not at the same time, but they did overlap a little bit. And studying with him was really great. I learned all about journeying to the lower world, the upper world, and the middle world. I learned all about tracking and extractions, performing empowerments, all the things that shamans do, communicating with the spirit world and with spirit guides. And shamanic work is something that is so special and near and dear to me, has a special place in my heart for sure. I feel like shamanism took my religion to the next level in terms of my comfort with it and my belief in it. Just knowing that there are all these spirit guides that I see on the regular, and in my clairvoyant moments, and when I do ritual, when I do spell work, when I do healings, when I do any kind of spiritual work, I feel them with me, I see them with me, I hear them with me, to have that connection. That was really opened up by this shaman that I studied with. He also helped me to gain a lot of spiritual confidence. You know, it's easy with spiritual work to have a lot of imposter syndrome. I'm sure that that's something that a lot of people can relate to, especially with psychic abilities and the clairs. It can be really hard to trust yourself. It can be really hard to be like, am I really claircognizant or am I just making stuff up? You know, so shamanic work and shamanism, becoming a shaman, really helped me to gain confidence in, no, I have a natural affinity for this. I have these skills. I enjoy it and I'm good at it. It comes naturally to me. I just love it. And it really enhanced my paganism to another level and enhanced my healing work. You're so cutie. You look like Dobby. You're so cute. And a lot of that is because of the shaman I was studying with. He was so great supporting me and teaching me, and he gave me a lot of confidence. He would tell me, you know, I have never had a student pick this up so fast. Or I've never had a student be told this by her spirit guide so quickly. I just have this natural affinity for moving through realms and dimensions, and it's actually in my zodiac chart that I have a natural affinity for faith and spirituality and religion. And it also shows up in a lot of strange ways throughout my life also. My name, the name my parents gave me, Madison, actually means son of God. So I have a very strong natural affinity for religion and faith and spirituality and spiritual work and psychic work. So studying with this shaman really helped me to feel my connection to that and be confident in it. And I will link this shaman's information down below, his website and his Instagram. He does still teach classes. He doesn't live near me anymore, which is the only reason I stopped studying with him, because I would still be studying with him if I could. But he moved away. So he might live near you now. So check out his website and his information, and you might be able to connect with him and learn from him. Through that shamanic apprenticeship is also how I learned all about making spiritual tools. I made my drum that's in a few of my videos. Through that study, I became a shaman, and now I am a shaman. And around this same time is also when I became ordained as a pagan priestess. I will link down below the temple that ordained me, but that was something that I felt called to do because I really wanted to be able to perform spiritual religious ceremonies for people. I really wanted to be able to do hand fastings for people. I really wanted to be able to perform funerals for people. And I wanted to be able to do wickenings. So I wanted to be able to perform these religious pagan rites and have them be legit. I wanted to be ordained so I could perform a hand fasting, a wedding, and have it be legally binding. So I became ordained as a pagan priestess. That was, I think, about a year and a half ago now that I became an ordained pagan priestess. So now I am an eclectic Wiccan, a witch, a pagan. I am a shaman. I am a certified Akashic Records practitioner, I'm a level 2 Reiki practitioner, and I am an ordained pagan priestess. And currently, I am studying to become a Reiki master. So I'm getting that last level of Reiki attunement and becoming a Reiki master, which is very exciting. Mainly because I really want to be able to attune other people to Reiki, and teach Reiki level 1, 2, and master to other people. So that's really exciting. I'm becoming a Reiki master. I'm also becoming a certified animal Reiki practitioner. I already give Reiki to animals. I've been giving Reiki to animals for a couple years now. I give it to my cats and my dog all the time. But I want to be certified so I can offer it to other people and their pets. I'm hoping I can travel to rescues and things and give Reiki to the animals there. So I'm becoming a certified animal Reiki practitioner also. And the other thing I'm studying right now is I'm becoming a Thana doula. Thana doula is a death doula. So you've probably heard of birth doulas where they lead you through the birthing process. They lead you through pregnancy and birth. Death doulas do the same thing, but for death. So I'm becoming a certified death doula, Thana doula. So I will be able to help people through the dying process, which is something I felt very called to for a while now, but I've been kind of scared for obvious reasons. I know now is the time for me to continue that study and become certified in that so I can begin to offer that service to people. So that's where I'm at right now. I'm so happy to be continuing my studies in these ways. And I plan on making some study vlogs, some spiritual study vlogs where I bring you guys along with me while I go through these days of long spiritual study and practice, so you guys can kind of go through it with me and come along for the ride. And also so years from now I can look back and remember, oh, that's when I became a death doula, and now I've been a death doula for 15 years, you know? So those are coming too. And along the way I have taken little one-off courses about spirituality and paganism and Wicca. I've taken a lot of courses about demons and about demonology, and about spirits of the chaos and the dark and the shadow. That's something that really calls to me, which you can see through my desire to work with things like death and darkness and shadow. So I have studied a lot of demonology. I do some spirit communication and mediumship. I don't do that much just because it's not something that resonates with me a super large amount. And also the way I became introduced to both Lilith and Hecate, I took class from a witch in my area named Scarlet. She is awesome. She is amazing. She is a great teacher and a great person. She'll answer any question you have. She does teach classes in the LA area, so if you live in LA or around LA, you can check out if she's teaching any classes anytime soon that you're interested in. But I learned all about Hecate and Lilith from Scarlet, so I'll link down below her information also if you want to check her out. That was something I did a long time ago too. That was one of those little, it was a few little one-off classes. I took 2 or 3 from her, I think, that taught me all about Hecate and Lilith. So that is all about my religious spiritual history and what I've got going on currently in terms of my spiritual study. I hope that this helped you guys to get a better understanding of who I am and where my perspective comes from. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to like it and subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any of my future uploads. Thank you so much for your support. It has helped me to create this community that I've always dreamed of, and the community will hopefully just keep getting bigger and bigger and stronger. So thank you for being a part of it. So that's all I have to share with you all today. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you soon. Blessed be.